Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as my mother raised her wine glass and said, "We all take pride in what we've built, some more than others." The folding chair I sat on, parked beside the bathroom, squeaked like it agreed. I'm Harlan Kessler, 52, retired military, and the medal they never mentioned still sat untouched in the hallway. Ever had your whole life edited out while you were still in the room? My mother raised her wine glass and said, "We all take pride in what we've built, some more than others." She didn't look at me, but she didn't need to. The laughter that followed her toast felt like wind chimes in a storm, delicate, a little forced, and completely unaware that the foundation had already cracked. I stood at the back of the patio lemon cake, sweating in its plastic container, waiting for someone, anyone, to say hello. But the greetings were for Thane and DeVry, full of big smiles and shoulder clasps. My return, it seemed, was as understated as my departure. Dad barely nodded when he saw me. Neoma glanced once, handed a pair of plastic tongs to DeVry, and turned away. Even Sella, who usually lit up when I came around, looked down at her sketchpad until I was seated. And that seat, that glorious folding chair beside the guest bathroom, squeaked when I sat. The back wobbled slightly, and every time someone opened the bathroom door, my left knee brushed against it. The smell of grilled ribs danced with lilac hand soap, clinging to the air like unresolved tension. Thane had taken my old spot, the one under the string lights next to Dad's favorite cooler, where I used to hand out beers and pretend I was still part of the circle. His shirt was unbuttoned, just enough to suggest confidence, not laziness. And his voice carried easily dropping phrases like, "Escrow closed and triple return." Neoma beamed. "We're all so proud of Thane's rise in real estate. And Devry," she turned with a performative grace, "has a gift for keeping this family anchored. She's our quiet compass." A few heads turned my way. One cousin raised an eyebrow as if to say, "And you?" But nothing came. No mention of me. No. And Harlan, who... Just the clink of forks on paper plates. I focused on the condensation forming on my cup. Water beaded, then ran pooling near a faded ketchup stain. My name tag. Yes. There were name tags this year had slid down my shirt, barely hanging on by one edge of the tape. Harlan in bold black Sharpie, as if they needed reminding. Still bouncing between projects, someone called across the table. I looked up, smile ready, but before I could speak, Neoma waved her hand like she was dismissing a fly. "He's resting." That's a kind word. That drew chuckles, light ones, embarrassed ones. I bit into the brisket on my plate and chewed slowly, letting the plastic knife bend as I cut the next piece. It was either that or respond. I excused myself to refill my cup. On the way back, I passed the hallway by the stairs, the one that led to my old room now, a reading nook. There, on the middle shelf, still sat the box. Dark green felt brass hinges, dust gathered in the corner like the family's neglect. Inside it, I knew, was the military commendation I'd received after Kabul. I'd left it there 3 years ago, expecting they might display it. Instead, it had become another artifact, not lost, just ignored. Back on the patio, Lowell tapped his glass. The projector flickered to life against the garage door. A slideshow played birthdays, camping trips, renovations. A photo of the house before Thane remodeled it, followed by one with new shingles and DeVry planting tulips. Nothing from before 2019. Nothing of me. As everyone clapped for a picture of Thane standing with a ribbon-cutting crew, a neighbor leaned over to me. "You ever settle into something real?" he asked. Not cruelly just curious. Before I could open my mouth, Neoma's voice slid in. "He drifts," she said, not even turning around. "Always has." I don't remember how I answered, or if I did. I remember Selah's hand, those small freckled fingers smudged with pencil. She slid a folded napkin toward me. On it, a tiny sketch, a stick figure sitting on a chair back turned to a long table. Above it, a little speech bubble with nothing in it. I folded it once more, tucked it into my pocket, and raised my cup to no one in particular. The patio bulb above me buzzed softly, the same bulb I'd installed 6 years ago. And just like that, the slideshow moved on. In the photo taped to the fridge, I was cropped out cleanly, a half arm, a sliver of uniform erased with surgical precision. It was the photo from Dad's 65th birthday. I remembered because I took it. Set the timer, placed it on the banister, gathered everyone by the fireplace. But now on the fridge door it showed only 6 people. My half arm had been surgically trimmed out of frame as if I'd never stood there, never smiled that strained smile, never handed Thane his beer. "Simpler photos are easier to explain," Neoma muttered when she caught me staring. Her voice held no malice, only the kind of neutrality reserved for tax codes and traffic reports. The living room smelled faintly of cinnamon potpourri, the kind that came in cellophane bags at dollar stores. A low hum from the air conditioner did nothing to soften the crackle of plastic photo sleeves as DeVry flipped pages in the album one by one with great ceremony. "Pine Bluff, 2019. She chirped, pointing at a snapshot of the whole clan gathered on a wooden deck. "Selah in floaties, Thane with a grill fork. I knew that deck I'd booked the cabin paid the deposit. What the photo didn't show was me. I'd taken that picture too. Each photo turned into a silent audit. I tracked the years by haircuts and baby teeth lost not by my presence. I stopped appearing in 2016. Before that, I was scattered throughout holding a snow shovel, opening gifts, slicing turkey. After 2016, nothing. Like I'd evaporated. Neoma narrated the pictures as if reading scripture. That was when DeVry organized the school auction. Remember how she made the banners herself? Thane nodded, not looking up. And here she pointed again when we surprised your father with that trip to Estes Park. Oh, that cabin was magical. I remember that cabin. I remember helping Dad down the icy path with his bum knee. I remember fixing the heater with a fork and duct tape. I remember none of those details being spoken now. Thane and DeVry beamed at every mention. I sat on the floral love seat too deep for comfort cushions, sinking like they'd given up. Selah perched on the carpet, knees tucked. Her pencil twitched on a small sketch pad. Occasionally she glanced at me, then back to the album. One photo from the 4th of July caught my breath. It had been framed, hung beside the light switch. The edge was torn not digitally, but physically ripped. There in the left corner, the faint shape of my shoulder. Barely visible like a watermark. My outline lived on ghost-like. "I like when you're in the pictures, too," Selah said softly. DeVry didn't miss a beat. "We don't talk about things that upset your grandma, remember?" Her voice was sweet, firm, practiced. I turned to Dad, hoping for what a smirk, a shrug. He sneezed loudly, jolting the mood. Everyone laughed. The moment passed. My eyes drifted toward the wall of certificates above the piano, framed documents lined up like awards in a modest museum. Among them one stood out, property transfer, Kessler family cabin, dated March 2021. I stood, moved closer. The paper was cream-colored, official-looking with a raised seal. I scanned the names. Lowell Kessler Grantor, Thane Kessler Grantee. No mention of me. I swallowed. My throat felt thick dry. I stared at the raised seal like it might wink at me. Confess it was all a mistake. I reached out, straightened the frame slightly. It had been crooked maybe by a centimeter. That's when I pulled out my phone. I didn't think. I just thumbed to Miri's contact and typed, "Did we ever finalize the cabin deed, or did I get played?" I didn't wait for the answer. I slipped the phone into my jacket pocket. Sella looked up as if sensing something shift. I gave her a small nod, barely more than a blink. The potpourri on the end table had cracked open cinnamon sticks, exposed and brittle. A family album lay open to the middle, and in it, every page seemed to speak the same thing. You were never here. They can't transfer what you never legally gave away, Shale said. His voice hadn't changed, still low measured with that slight Colorado edge that made even the most damning truths sound like logic. It had been years since I'd last heard it, but the cadence settled into my chest like a familiar hand on the shoulder. Rain traced a thin, trembling line down the Airbnb's window beside me. Outside, the streetlights flickered, catching in small puddles on the gravel driveway. Inside a folding desk, a rented printer, and my duffel bag, still unzipped half my life, spilling out into hotel drawers. You kept every document Shale asked. I nodded before realizing he couldn't see me. Yeah, most of it. Bank statements, wires, emails, maintenance quotes. Good, he said. Truth tends to hide in footnotes. That was the first lesson he ever gave me, 2005 Fort Bliss, after I missed a discrepancy in a logistical report and nearly signed off on a crate of non-functional radios. He never raised his voice, just handed me a yellow legal pad and said, "The problem's in the margins. Always is." I sat now with a similar pad corners curled, the first page scribbled with a name. They forgot I paid. Beneath it, bullet points. Pine Bluff receipts, $4,000 monthly transfers, 2 roof repair estimates, and a screenshot of the cabin's Airbnb reviews still listed under my name, even after the so-called transfer. Neoma and Thane claim the deed was cleaned in 21, I told him. I never signed anything. Didn't even know it happened. Then it didn't, Shale said flatly. In the absence of a legal signed and witnessed revocation, your rights persist. I leaned back in the chair, its cushion cracked and uneven. My coffee had cooled on the window ledge, forming a thin film on top. I didn't touch it. I can't go in swinging, I said. If I blow this up, it'll just confirm what they already whisper, unstable, erratic holding grudges. Shale paused. I could almost picture him in his small house in Cannon City, fingers laced over his belt, standing by the wood stove. You're not going in to burn bridges, he said. You're documenting what you built and what they paved over. I opened my laptop. Miri's name hovered at the top of the inbox. She had always been sharp. Too sharp sometimes, but loyal in the ways that mattered. I typed, "Miri, can you dig for the cabin chain from 2021? I'm looking for emails, PDF scans, any digital sign-off from me. I'm sure there isn't one, but I need proof. Thanks, H." Within 10 minutes, she replied. Already on it. Also found the maintenance doc from when you paid for the septic tank redo. Attaching. M. She always had a way of sounding calm, even when furious. I created a new folder on my desktop, named it They Forgot I Paid. Dragged in the septic file, then the transfer receipts, then the property tax breakdown. For each I renamed them clear titles like Roof Repair Invoice 2019 Bank Wire July 2020 PDF Paint Labor Cabin South Wall JPG. My duffel rustled as I moved to pull out the envelope Shale had sent me 2 years ago, a bundle of documents I never bothered to scan. They smelled faintly of printer ink and envelope glue. One page caught my eye, an image Miri had photographed last summer and slipped in the keychain to the cabin. A silver tag my name scratched off with something sharp, but still legible beneath Harlan. I stared at it longer than I meant to. Then the email came in. Neoma. We didn't ask for anything. You offer, then play victim. That's your pattern. No one wanted your money, Harlan. But we were never allowed to say no, were we? No salutation, no signature, just a statement, cold, careful, and designed to echo the sentence she'd delivered over dinner. He drifts, always has. I clicked away, opened another folder, searched by keywords deed notary signature. One document surfaced labeled innocuously Transfer Family Cabin PDF. I opened it. At the bottom, my name, written in cursive just slightly off. A forgery, I was almost sure. The date March 12th, 2021. I checked my journal. I was in Doha that week. Embedded. I had flight records, stamped passport entries. My finger hovered over the trackpad. I screenshotted the page, filed it under potential fraud. Then my phone buzzed. Miri, this may be bigger than theft. Could be fraud. Ready to pursue. I stared at her message, the light of the screen reflecting in the window. Outside, the rain had turned to a soft patter, gentler now, but steady. I didn't answer right away. The cabin was mine until it wasn't. A single page in a beige folder, a line drawn through my name, and a new one printed below. Thane Kessler, sole beneficiary. The county records office smelled faintly of toner and instant coffee. Its walls were yellowed from time-not paint. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a sterile glow on the chipped linoleum and dented metal chairs. I stood at the counter, elbows resting on cool laminate, waiting as the clerk sifted through a drawer labeled KL. He found it easily. Tucked in the back paperclip, slightly bent pink flag, noting copy requested. Your mother brought this in herself, he said, sliding the file forward. March 2021. His tone was professional, detached. I nodded, though something inside me tilted. The page was unremarkable, just words and signatures. But mine wasn't one of them. Not really. A cursive scrawl that mimicked my hand, but slanted too far left. I traced it with my eyes, heart knocking against my ribs. I hadn't even been in the country that week. The clerk stepped away, leaving me with the file. I ran a finger along the edge of the paper. The ink on the signature had bled slightly, like it had been pressed too hard. Next to it, Naoma's name neat underlined like she always did on holiday cards. I remembered her voice, not angry, just firm. It's easier this way. You're always too generous for your own good. It had been after the last Christmas I spent at the cabin. Thane had forgotten to bring firewood DeVry had made boxed stuffing, and I'd driven 4 hours in a snowstorm with groceries and 3 bottles of wine. When I'd arrived, no one asked why I was late. Neoma had met me on the porch, arms crossed, and said the words like she was offering a shortcut. It's easier this way. I pulled out my phone. My thumb hovered over Thane's name. I tapped. You know about the deed? He replied in under a minute. Dad handled it. Don't drag this out. No punctuation, no warmth, just 5 words efficient and final. I took a breath, then another. I folded the page gently and fed it into the scanner at the far corner of the office. The machine groaned before warming up, and each scan beeped like a metronome set to betrayal. I watched the PDF appear on screen, Kessler cabin transfer.pdf. The file icon blinked. I renamed it Ownership/Theft 2021. PDF saved it in a folder called Formal Step 1. My phone buzzed again, voicemail from Shale. Let me know when you're ready to go formal. These kinds of errors have a way of shrinking under pressure. His voice was calm, intact. The way people speak when they know the floor is solid. I walked out into the parking lot. The clouds had broken into patches, streaks of blue slicing through gray. Rain droplets shimmered on my windshield, not yet evaporated. Back at the Airbnb, I shrugged off my jacket. As I did, something heavy clattered to the floor. I turned. The metal case. The one that had sat untouched on the hallway shelf, now traveling with me like a phantom limb. It had fallen from the inside pocket, bounced once, then landed face down. I picked it up. The hinge had cracked. A fine line ran through the seam. It still opened, but not cleanly, not like before. I sat on the bed, holding it in both hands. The brass inside still shone. My name engraved below the crest. But something had shifted. The damage wasn't visible unless you knew where to look, unless you'd held it before. I opened my laptop, dragged the scanned deed into an email. To Neoma Kessler, Lowell Kessler, subject ownership dispute. Immediate review. No message, no sign-off. I hit send, closed the laptop. The room was quiet. Printer asleep. Coffee cold. My breath fogged slightly on the window. An hour later, a cream envelope slid under the door. Hand-delivered. No stamp. No return address. Inside, a printed invitation. Lowell Kessler's 70th birthday celebration backyard brunch. Casual attire. Sunday at 1 Huro. No RSVP instructions. No line for +1. No table assignment. Not even my name. We didn't expect you to come, my mother said, her voice even as she flicked imaginary dust from the tablecloth. I placed the white envelope beside the birthday cards, just to the left of the paper napkin holder, shaped like an elk. Not after all that drama. I didn't answer. I nodded once, the kind of nod you give a neighbor from your car window, and moved toward the buffet table where the lemon cake I'd brought sat untouched at the far edge. No one had sliced it. The frosting had begun to lose its gloss under the midday sun. It looked like a guest no one had introduced. The folding chairs were arranged in casual clusters across the lawn, most filled. I hovered for a moment, holding a paper plate, until someone gestured vaguely toward a collapsible stool near the fence. I nodded again. Dad stood near the grill, laughing too loudly at something a neighbor said. His hair had thinned considerably since I'd last seen him, but the loud shirts and open sandals hadn't changed. He waved in my direction, or maybe beyond me. I returned the wave, unsure. Music buzzed faintly from a Bluetooth speaker perched atop a cooler. 90s country. Someone fiddled with the volume knob as Neoma walked past, her posture stiff as driftwood. Then Thane took the mic. Of course he did. We're here. He began to honor a man who's built not just a career, but a family legacy. A provider. A mentor. A man who taught us to work hard, and never ask for recognition. People clapped. DeVry looked up from her phone long enough to squeeze his hand. "He's passed on land wisdom and tradition," Thane continued, "and I'm proud to carry that forward." Another round of applause. My name never surfaced. It was like applauding a family tree that forgot one of its roots. I waited until he stepped down. I didn't ask for a turn. I didn't clear my throat or raise a hand. I simply walked to the grill sideboard, the one with the tongs and the lighter fluid, and placed a second envelope beside the stack of condiments. It was labeled in neat, blocky handwriting, "Final Statement." I didn't speak. I didn't gesture. I stepped back and let the silence work harder than words. Neoma noticed it first. She tilted her head as if trying to place the object's species. Then, like a hostess checking the buffet line for expired dip, she walked over and picked it up. She opened it without ceremony. Read the first page. Her lips thinned. She flipped to the second. Her voice when it came was quieter than usual, which made it worse. Itemized financial support from 2013 through 2021. Mortgage supplements, roof repair, back taxes, legal services for property transfer, unpaid maintenance, attached notarized statement from Shale and Rowan advisory role, re-trust disbursements. If my worth was ever measured in money, let this be the last evidence. Her fingers trembled slightly, not from weakness, but restraint. She looked at me. I didn't blink. Beside the envelope I had placed my medal case. It sat there brass, catching the sun in a small, unwavering blaze, unopened. No one asked what it was. No one dared. Plastic forks paused mid-air. A child whined for soda. Someone coughed into the silence and the Bluetooth speaker blurted a beat too loudly before someone turned it down again. Neoma inhaled sharply and tore the letter in half. Slowly. Once vertically, once horizontally. Then she dropped the 4 pieces on the table and said, "You've embarrassed this family for the last time." No one clapped. No one moved. Even the wind seemed unsure what to carry next. I turned to leave. My jacket hung from the back of a chair, and as I slipped it on I heard small footsteps behind me. Selah. She didn't say anything. She just picked up the torn pieces, folded them carefully twice, then once more, and slipped them into the inner pocket of her denim jacket. She looked up at me. Her expression didn't beg for explanation. It didn't offer comfort. It simply said, "I saw. I remember." I gave her the smallest of nods, then I walked away. "Is that—" "The guy from the news," someone whispered low and startled. The black SUV rolled slowly across the gravel tires, crunching with deliberate weight. It pulled to a stop beside the lawn chairs that hadn't been cleared yet, headlights off engine still rumbling like an animal that hadn't quite decided to sleep. I was standing near the back porch holding a paper cup of over-steeped iced tea when the door opened. Out stepped a man in a tailored black suit tie, perfectly knotted sunglasses still on despite the dying light. His posture alone made people straighten. The crowd that had been thinning neighbors saying goodbyes, relatives hugging too long, paused. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. DeVry lowered her wine glass. Thane tilted his head like he couldn't decide whether to frown or smirk. The man walked forward, shoes silent, on dry grass. Behind him, 2 others remained in the vehicle watching. He stopped 3 feet from me, removed his sunglasses, and tucked them into his inner pocket. His expression was unreadable. Not cold, not warm, simply exact. "You are Harlan Kessler," he said, not asked. I nodded. Yes. He reached into a slim portfolio and retrieved a document in a navy folder. No seal, no ribbons, just clean lines and weight. I am Lucan Graves, he said. Personal Security Detail Office of the President. I was instructed to deliver this in person. He extended the folder. I took it. Inside a certificate, printed on textured cream paper. The Office of the President formally recognizes the Silent Veterans Grant founded and maintained by Harlan Kessler. In its years of operation, the grant supported 182 veterans and their families. This service, unpublicized, uncredited, exemplifies citizenship of the highest order. I stared at the words, not quite reading, more like absorbing, like sun after storm. Graves didn't speak again. He raised his right hand crisp square and delivered a formal military salute. He held it, just long enough, and then quietly he nodded once, turned, and walked back toward the vehicle. No applause, no music, just the soft hum of the string lights overhead, the buzz of the world briefly muted. Neoma stood beside the drink table, one hand curled around a plastic spoon. Her face betrayed nothing, not shock, not shame. Just the practiced mask of someone who'd rehearsed neutrality for decades. Lowell looked down at his sandals. Sella broke the silence. Her voice was small but not shy. Why didn't they ever tell me nobody answered? Neoma turned away, adjusted a plate on the table, as if rearranging skewers might reorder time. Behind me, my phone buzzed. I slipped it from my pocket. A text from Miri. Judge signed the reversal. Cabin's yours again. Deed transfer ruled invalid, improper signature, timeline, mismatch, failure of notice. It's over. Or starting, depending how you see it. I exhaled through my nose. The kind of exhale that doesn't release pressure, just gives it shape. Then another buzz email this time. From Colonel Vernon Shale. Subject legacy. The past isn't who you are. What you do now, that's legacy. I'll back you. Say the word. I looked up. The SUV was gone. No sound but a porch light flickering against the side of the house, hitting the metal I'd left beside the birthday cards. It glinted once, then stilled. The envelope was pale blue with tiny silver stars pressed into the paper. My name was written in lowercase letters, each one a little uncertain, except the capital K in Kessler, which curved like a hook catching breath. I sat at the small desk by the window, the lamplight pooling over the envelope like warm tea. Outside, snow flurried lightly past the glass. Austin didn't often wear winter properly, but today it tried. I opened the envelope slowly, careful not to tear it. The letter inside was folded once, neatly, edges aligned. Sella's handwriting had changed, steadier than when she was 12, but still bearing that odd slant she had when she was nervous. You were never invisible to me, it began. Even when you were sitting by the bathroom door. Even when no one said your name. Even when Grandma said you made things complicated. I think complicated people are the only ones worth knowing. I set the paper down for a second. Let my fingers rest on its edge, not to steady it, but to feel it. To remind myself that she was real. They always said you drifted, but I watched you choose stillness over shouting. That's harder. I'm applying to read. My essay is about memory, about how forgetting isn't quiet, it's a scream disguised as silence. I leaned back in the chair. The lamplight blinked once like a held breath. then steadied. On the bookshelf sat the digitally restored photograph from Pine Bluff, the one Miri had sent months ago. My face, once cropped, had been reintegrated. No fanfare, just presence. A person not erased. Below the photo, I had placed a simple caption. This was real. I was there. I reached for my fountain pen, chose the heavier stationery. Dear Sella, thank you for seeing me. History isn't edited by those who shout louder, but by those who remember deeper. I'm proud of you, and if Reed accepts you, they'll be lucky to have someone who doesn't flinch at nuance. I signed only my first name. She didn't need the rest. Later that week, a package arrived. No return label, no note. Inside was my old military commendation case. The hinge had been replaced, the velvet cleaned. The corner once chipped was mended with something like gold resin, the kind used in ceramic repairs when you want to show the break, not hide it. I held it in my hands, not to rage, not to win, just to honor what it had survived. On a quiet Sunday, I walked the short path to Oakwood Cemetery, tulips in hand white with the faintest pink blush. I found Uncle Robert's grave easily, though no one had visited in years. The headstone was simple. Robert T. Kessler, 1942-2003. Dreamer, troublemaker, devoted uncle. They used to say he was unstable, that he remembered too much, too vividly. But he never forgot my birthday. I placed the tulips at his headstone. The petals fluttered a little in the cold air, as if they were nodding or refusing to bow. As I turned to leave, the wind tugged gently at the hem of my coat. Not sharp, not cruel, just enough to remind me that I was moving. And that was enough. Devry dropped her wine glass. It shattered softly on the concrete patio. No one bent to pick it up. The metal case now sits on my bookshelf, hinge mended velvet clean, no longer a reminder of what was taken, but of what endured. A soft draft nudges the curtain beside it, like a breath that never had the chance to speak until now. Sometimes justice doesn't knock, it arrives in a padded envelope sealed with memory and care. And forgiveness. It's less about letting go than about choosing what's worth holding on to. We don't need parades to honor the truth, only quiet, steady eyes willing to see it. Has life ever handed you a second chance in disguise? And did you recognize it when it came?